week 12 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to buy and trade for this week. The first guy, Chisholm of the Miami Marlins. So Chisholm, it's been a good season here for him, but obviously not for this Marlin team once again, where they're in a tough division with good teams like the Mets, Braves, and Philadelphia Phillies, and now Chisholm on the injured list with a back injury here. So right now, it's been a nagging issue supposedly for the last few weeks here for Chisholm, and he just had to go on the injured list. But he was putting up a pretty solid season here. 14 home runs, 45 RBIs, 12 stolen bases, 39 runs scored, 254 average, and a 325 on base. So obviously, he's injured, but now this is the perfect time to get him, because if he could come back and put up the numbers he's been putting up, you get a good player at second or shortstop, wherever you need help. And of course, it's a weak position, those positions. So right now, I would definitely go out there and try to make a deal for Chisholm while he's hurt. I don't think it's going to be a whole season here for Chisholm. Obviously, a back is no joke in any sport, but I think Chisholm could get back in the next couple weeks here, and he's going to pay good dividends for your fantasy team. This guy does it all. He can hit home runs, he could steal bases, batting average, not all that great, but everything else he does, runs, stolen bases, homers, and even RBIs. June 19th at the Mets, 2 for 4 run and a rib. June 20th at the Mets, 0 for 2. June 22nd versus the Rockies, 2 for 3, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored. June 23rd versus the Rockies, 1 for 3 with a bag. June 24th versus the Mets, 2 for 3 with a run. June 25th versus the Mets, 1 for 4. Then he sat out a couple games, and then he returned June 28th at the Cardinals, 0 for 1, and left with the back discomfort. So right now, I think he'll probably come back August, but if you could wait a month here for Chisholm, I think it's going to help your fantasy teams. And like I mentioned, second and shortstop are weak positions, and he qualifies at both. So definitely go out there and try to make a deal for him, because once he comes back, this guy puts up numbers, and he's been a great fantasy option this season. The next guy, Gorman of the St. Louis Cardinals. So a lot of Nolan Gorman in the minor leagues, where he had 18 home runs before they called him up in late May, early June here was the St. Louis Cardinals. And I mentioned Gorman a few weeks ago as a guy to buy low. He went on a little bit of a hot streak, and now he's banged up a little bit with a hand injury and has been struggling as well. But on the season here for Gorman, 6 home runs, 17 RBIs, 20 runs scored, 254 average, and a 313 on base. So that's only in 118 at-bats already with the 6 home runs. This guy, he's got a great swing. I like it a lot. Good line drive hitter. Can hit to all fields here. But just right now, he's been struggling a little bit over the last couple weeks here for Gorman. 3 homers, 5 RBIs, 231 average, and a 250 on base. And obviously, he don't play versus lefties, which could be a problem as well. But this guy's got major upside. And once he gets going, this guy could be a top power hitter in the league, I think, in the next few seasons. And another guy that qualifies at second and third, good versatility. And obviously, second's a weak position in fantasy. So the last few games here for Gorman, June 21st at the Brewers, 4 for 4, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. June 22nd at the Brewers, 0 for 4. June 23rd at the Brewers, 2 for 4 with a run. June 24th versus the Cubs, 0 for 4. June 25th versus the Cubs, 0 for 5. June 26th versus the Cubs, 0 for 4. June 27th, 2 for 4 versus the Marlins with 2 runs. And now he sat out with the hand and the matchup versus the lefty the last 2 games here. So Gorman, if he's out there on your waiver wire, you shouldn't hesitate to go out there and pick him up. Available in 44% of fantasy leagues here, because once he gets going and gets in a rhythm, this guy definitely can help fantasy teams, I believe. And his power is legit, and his swing is legit as well, in my opinion. So right now, while he's down and not doing much, you could get him very cheap this week here, and this would be the time to do it. The next guy, Soto of the Washington Nationals. So I keep saying Soto's going to break out and get things going, and he's a guy you should go out there and buy low. And each week, his stats keep going down, and his value keeps going down, where right now you don't got to give up much, in my opinion, compared to obviously early in the season to get Soto on your roster. On the season, 14 home runs, 32 RBIs, 43 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 224 average, and a 375 on base. So everything, honestly, is on par here still for Soto. Besides, obviously, the RBIs and the batting average. His on base is still great, 150 points higher than his batting average. And the RBIs are horrible, only 32, but home runs 14. He still can hit 25-30 on the season here with Soto. But the last couple weeks, we've seen nothing from him. 1 home run, 4 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a 205 batting average, and a 364 on base. So he's not showing power the last few weeks here. Batting average, very uncharacteristic. here for Soto. But hey, he doesn't have much protection in that lineup. Besides Josh Bell and Nelson Cruz, the only threats here in Washington. But like I mentioned, the weather's been warming up, and Soto's going to get going because once this guy's on a tear, he could carry a fantasy team for months on end here. So right now, while he's doing nothing, and you could get possibly the top player in fantasy baseball when it's all said and done, to go out there and get Soto. I think a mediocre starter and a decent hitter will get the job done to get him on your roster. And why wouldn't you want to get him? June 22nd at Baltimore 0 for 2. June 24th at Texas 1 for 4 with a run. June 25th at Texas 1 for 4 with a run. June 26th at Texas 1 for 1 with 2 runs. June 27th versus the Pirates 2 for 3. June 28th versus the Pirates 1 for 3 with a run. And June 29th versus the Pirates 1 for 5 with an RBI. So right here, Soto, he does have a 7-game hitting streak here, which I'll take a positive out of. But it's still not enough for fantasy owners to think he's going to break out of the slump. So right now, I think he's going to break out. And once he does, he's going to break out of this slump here, Soto. And once that gets going, he's going to carry fantasy teams. And owners are going to be kicking themselves, not trying to get him on a discount. So right now, while his value is probably at an all-time low for his fantasy career, this is a perfect time to make a deal for Soto. The next guy, Marcell Ozuna of the Atlanta Braves. So Ozuna, it hasn't been a great season after last season. He pretty much missed the whole year with injury and off-the-field issues. So on the season here for Ozuna, 14 home runs, 32 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 36 runs scored, a 222 average, and a 279 on base. So Ozuna, we know he's a hacker up there at the plate, but we know he's got legit power as well. So right now, 14 home runs, still great at this time of the season, where he could finish with 25 or 30, but the RBIs are down. High strikeout rate as usual here, 70 strikeouts on the season, and the batting average is way down there in the dumps. But Ozuna is, well, not known for a batting average guy, really, even though I know in the shortened season, the pandemic year in 2020, led the league in batting average that year. But last season, he only hit 213 in 188 at-bats, and this season only 222. But everything else, I like what I'm seeing from Ozuna. The home runs are going to be there. You wish the RBIs would be a little bit higher, but he's going to get things going. This Brave team, they've been on a mission this month here, catching up 8 games on the New York Mets in the standings and winning like 21 out of 26, something crazy like that they did in the month of June. But the last 2 weeks here for Ozuna, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 5 runs scored, 154 average, and a 261 on base. But once this guy gets going and gets on a hot streak, he could carry a fantasy team easily for 2 or 3 weeks on his own. The last few games here for Ozuna, June 22nd versus the Giants, 2 for 4 with 2 runs. June 23rd versus the Giants, 0 for 2 with a rib. June 24th versus the Dodgers, 0 for 4. June 25th versus the Dodgers, 1 for 3, a homer, 2 RBIs, a run scored. June 26th versus the Dodgers, 1 for 4 with a rib. June 28th at Philly, 0 for 3. And June 29th at Philly, 0 for 3 with a run. So right now, he's not really even hitting here, is Ozuna. And this Brave team is winning ball games, like I mentioned, left and right, without him hitting. And once he gets going, forget about it. And now I think he's going to have a breakout weekend here, Ozuna. He finishes up here tonight at the Philadelphia Phillies. And then he's got a nice 3-game set at Cincinnati Reds, which obviously they've been a bad team this season. And that's a great hitter's ballpark, a bandbox there as well. So Ozuna, I think this is the time to buy him low in a day or two before I definitely could see him break out here at Cincinnati. In the 5th and final hit, I look to buy low and trade for is Giancarlo Stanton of the New York Yankees. So the Yankees, the best team in Major League Baseball, and they're winning ball games with pitching more than anything, it seems like, lately. Stanton's been in a slump. Judge's batting average has gone down over the last few weeks, even though he's still hitting homers. And Anthony Rizzo hasn't been doing much with Donaldson as well. So on the season here for Stanton, 19 home runs, 52 RBIs, 30 runs scored, a 244 average, and a 331 on base. But the last few weeks here, the power's still there. RBIs is still there. 6 homers, 12 RBIs, but only a 143 average and a 265 on base. So right now it's been a home run, a bust for Stanton. And we know, obviously, he don't play the field much for this Yankee team. But this is a guy, you could get him pretty cheap, I believe, here. The strikeouts are high, and he's just been a power guy for the most part. But there's nothing wrong with that. Last few games here for him, June 22nd at Tampa, 0 for 3 with a run. June 23rd versus Houston, 1 for 3, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored. June 24th versus Houston, 1 for 4, a homer and RBI. June 25th versus Houston, 0 for 4. June 26th versus Houston, 1 for 4, homer and RBI. June 27th versus the Oakland A's 1 for 3, a homer, 2 ribs, 2 runs. And June 29th versus Oakland, 1 for 3, a homer, 3 RBI. So right now, Stanton's been playing pretty much the whole season, which is a good thing because he's usually good for 2 or 3 injured-less stints. I know he had a short one early in the season, but his power's legit. And I think you could get him cheap, honestly. I know he's got 19 homers on the season. I know over the last couple weeks he still has 6 home runs here, but the batting average is taking a hit. And I think you could get him on a little bit of a discount because if he stays healthy this season, this guy's easily a 35 to 40 home run guy. And why wouldn't you want that on your roster, even if you have to give up on some batting average? So that's a few hitters I look to buy and trade for Week 12 of the fantasy baseball season.